This is the Capitol Rundown.
You've got almost over a month to vote, to get a vote, to get your ballot, to return it.
Coming into the debate wasn't as defined. This was her first presidential debate ever. It was Trump's seventh, the most seasoned presidential debater of all time.
The race is still a tie. And in other words, neither candidate got a bounce out of this debate.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Siobhan Klepfer. Let's get you caught up on the political week that was. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump squared off in a high-stakes debate in Philadelphia on Tuesday. As our Washington correspondent Rashad Hudson reports, both sides say they outperformed the other.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Following Tuesday night's debate, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are taking victory laps. The two sparred for 90 minutes on key issues like the economy.
Investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors.
Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation.
And abortion.
The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers are reacting to the debate. Democrats say Harris had a strong night, and Republicans say it was a good night for Trump, but took issue with the moderators.
And we weren't able to pressure Kamala a little bit more on issues that she's been flipping on.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if we had focused on that, because that actually is what it comes down to, what are the policies.
I mean, I was almost feeling bad for Donald Trump towards the end of it. It was not a good performance by him.
Immediately after the debate, the Harris campaign said it wanted to do that again. Trump had pushed for multiple debates, but Wednesday said,
You know, when you win, you don't really necessarily have to do it a second time, so we'll see.
Political scientist Todd Belt believes we will see the two on a debate stage again before the election.
I personally would like to see another one because I don't think we got as much policy specifics as we could have. We got a little bit at the very end.
Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.
And Mr. Trump has since said he will not debate Vice President Harris again. So how did the candidates perform on Tuesday night? The Rundown talked to Aaron Call of the University of Michigan. The director of the debate for the university says the vice president was the clear winner, but Mr. Trump was able to score some points as well. According to Call, the vice president's performance showed that she spent time preparing for the debate. That preparation helped her maneuver around her Republican opponent.
Really see her prosecutorial background come out. She tried to be the agent of change candidate, forward-looking. Both kind of talked about her biography, some of the accomplishments from the Biden-Harris administration, but tried to pivot to some different plans that she'd want to do if she were at the top of the ticket. Child tax credits, trying to solve the housing crisis, some issues for middle class. But Trump had some moments, the debate starting out, the classic question, are you better off than 4 years ago? Ronald Reagan asked that same question of Jimmy Carter in 1980. It worked out well for him. And she kind of dodged that a little bit and didn't provide a definitive answer. Issues on the economy, inflation, immigration is something where Trump has the advantage and did try to bring it back there. If he was on an issue that wasn't as favorable, like abortion, he always tried to harp on immigration and energy, specifically energy, oil prices, given how important Pennsylvania is, maybe the overall swing tip state. And so I thought when he did that at the start of the debate, he did pretty well. But as the debate went on, lost some focus, allowed the attack, somewhat personal, to get under his skin and reverted to some looking backwards, to grievances and conspiracy theories, things that many people considered past, and kind of wanted to settle those old political scores rather than kind of turn the page and look to the future if he were president for the next 4 years. And so every moment he did that, I felt not talking about the issues where he had an advantage was wasted time. And in the end, I thought that Harris had the better night because of that.
And of course, we had to ask the director of debate how he'd grade the candidates.
Yeah, Harris would probably get an A-, B+. She had a greater degree of difficulty coming into the debate. Wasn't as defined. This was her first presidential debate ever. It was Trump's seventh, the most seasoned presidential debater of all time. For Trump, C range, in that he I thought, had moments, just was inconsistent. His closing statement I thought was strong, and that message of, yes, you have these interesting ideas, but what have you done as the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And you're not you're just all talk and no action, and trying to point out some of Harris's inconsistent positions over the years now that she's trying to moderate. So there were spurts of that, but the things that people focus on at the end of the debate were a little bit more favorable to Harris. And just like in the first debate, it kind of will cause media cycles of, Trump had the age and stamina to be president again. He's 78, be the oldest president ever. So I think some of the takeaways, some of the viral clips that'll be on social media and news cycles in the coming days and weeks that, give the edge to Harris. And that's why Trump's grade's a little bit lower.
Coming up next, Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson will be here to talk about securing the state's election process. The Capitol Rundown will be right back. Welcome back. With less than 2 months before Election Day, clerks across Michigan are working hard behind the scenes to make sure everything goes smoothly. And this election season, there are some changes to the process. The Rundown's Sherry Jones spoke with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson about those and other election issues.
Well, Secretary Benson, thank you so much for joining us. Michigan is just one of many states that are going to decide the future of our next president. And what expectations do you see from voters so far who are wanting to take part in that process?
Well, I've seen by and large, as I've traveled the state these last few weeks, how people very much recognize the responsibility we have as Michiganders to define not just the future of our state with our votes this year, but the future of our nation. And it's a really weighty decision that we have to make, but an important one. And my hope is that everyone will be a part of that decision, no matter how they choose to cast their vote, because that's the best way we can ensure truly accountable government at every level.
And one of those things, a large turnout could mean long lines, but there are some options here in Michigan, voting absentee and now early voting.
Yeah, in our primary this August, most of the citizens who participated voted ahead of time. They voted from home and mailed in their ballot, or they voted early at one of our early voting centers. And that's a great option for the fall as well. If you're concerned about long lines on Election Day itself in November, which is now essentially the last day to vote, it's your last chance to vote. We want people to take advantage of the other days in which there may not be any lines, and certainly a more convenient option for many of our residents. And you can go to michigan.gov/vote right now and request your ballot to be mailed to you, so that you can, once you have your ballot in hand in late September, decide how to return it, even if you'd like to return it in person and put it into the machine yourself. So options are the name of the game in Michigan, and michigan.gov/vote is your one-stop source for how to exercise those options, whatever you choose.
Wonderful. Well, closer to home, and Election Day starting actually in late October now, which is right around the corner. People can cast their ballots early. So that is something that we haven't seen before.
It is, yeah. Every community is now required under the state constitution, after voters voted an amendment into it in 22, to offer at least 9 days of early voting. That means beginning October 26th, every community for 9 days, that's 2 Saturdays and 2 Sundays and a full week in between, will be required to offer in-person voting for citizens to just show up. They could, in many cases, register right there as well and cast their ballot. And we've got hardworking clerks and election workers all across our state working to make sure that option remains secure and accessible to everyone.
And it's interesting to you say that November 5th is the last day now, instead, because of the options that people now have.
You've got almost over a month to vote, to get your ballot, to return it. And the earlier you do, the better, because it increases your likelihood of having more options and making sure you get your ballot in on time. And I do think in the years ahead we'll start to see that first Tuesday in November, traditional voting day, as the last day that one can vote in an election.
And we'll have more with the Secretary of State in the second part of our interview after the break. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown. Welcome back. This election season, politicians and others are calling into question the integrity of the election process and who should be allowed to vote. Here's part 2 of Sherry Jones's conversation with Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson.
Well, there is an article right now in the New York Times about Republicans who are concerned about people who are not American citizens being able to vote. There is even a woman from Michigan who is actually quoted as saying that they should search voter rolls for ethnic names. So first, how big of an issue is this? And the Times quoted some studies that say this is literally almost 1 in a million.
Yeah, there's no evidence that anyone other than U.S. citizens are voting in our elections in a significant way. But what we do appreciate are the questions. It is important for people to know the truth and know the procedures we have in place to protect the sanctity of the process and ensure only U.S. citizens are voting in our elections. For example, when someone comes into our office and gets their license and is registered to vote, it is required that they provide documentation in order to get that ID and that license and thereby be registered. In that moment, we'll know if someone is a citizen or not based on the documentation they provide in getting their license or ID. So we have many ways of checking and ensuring that only U.S. citizens are registering to vote, and also removing folks who might have been wrongly registered through third-party organizations and the like. So we do a lot of things ahead of Election Day to ensure the accuracy of our voter registration rolls and ensure only eligible citizens are on them. But we appreciate and understand people's concerns. We know there's a lot of elected officials and politicians out there stoking the fires in this regard. But what we don't want and what we want to avoid is any type of discrimination or intimidation to lawful voters who have various names or last names. There is no reason why a last name should indicate whether someone is a citizen or not, and so we don't want people to use that in a way that could be discriminatory or intimidation, because there are laws against intimidation, particularly when it is rooted in discrimination.
And what if someone feels like they are experiencing that? What should they do?
Well, they should certainly talk to their local clerk. There's also a hotline, 866-OUR-VOTE, that's OURVOTE, where nonpartisan election attorneys are on standby always to answer and help someone who may have questions or may feel that they've been intimidated. There's actually a case as far back as 1999 out of Hamtramck where similarly people used voters' last names to wrongfully try to stop them from voting on the false allegations that they weren't citizens. That actually became a federal court case that protected those citizens, but also underscored just how far we sometimes have to go to protect citizens' ability to vote, regardless of what name they may have.
Still to come, how are Michiganders responding to the presidential debate? Our Capitol correspondent, Tim Skubic, will be here to tell us, and that's next. Welcome back. In Michigan, the presidential race is tight, with undecided voters potentially making the difference. Our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic spoke to the Rundown's Jorma Duran about the latest poll numbers following Tuesday night's debate.
It's time to get updated politically here in the state of Michigan, and nobody better than this guy right here, Tim Skubic, to help us out. Tim, we all got the chance to see Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump debate each other. What was the biggest takeaway you had from both candidates?
Well, first of all, it was a 90-minute debate, and basically there was a lot of red meat. If you're a Democrat, you loved what she was saying. If you're a Republican, you were loving what he was saying. But the problem for both of these candidates is basically that's not the audience that they need. With this race in Michigan being a statistical dead heat, they needed to address the people that are on the fence, the independent voters, those who are inclined not to vote, get them to motivate for you. And I'm not so sure that the messaging that went on in that debate, although there was a tremendous amount of back and forth, I'm not sure either candidate accomplished that goal. 67 million people watched this debate. So you would think, based on that, that there would be some people who changed their minds. Now comes our friends over at the Mears newsletter, who hired Stevie Mitchell, the pollster, to do a post-debate analysis, and amazingly, here's what he found. The race is still a tie. And in other words, neither candidate got a bounce out of this debate. 56% of the people said that she won the debate. 37% said that he won the debate. But you would think if the majority of people thought she won the debate, she would have gotten a huge bump out of this. But as it turns out, and here's the real storyline, 3% of the people that were watching decided to go over to Ms. Harris. 5% watching decided to go to Mr. Trump. Go figure. People said he gave a lackluster performance, yet he gained more points than she did. Of course, the polling data could be a little wavery or a little bit off, but that's the data that they came up with, and it's an amazing finding because you would expect if she won the debate, she should have gotten a bigger bounce, Jorma.
So now that we have that information, where does the race go from here?
That's a good question. First of all, it goes basically to the airwaves and personal appearances, although Mr. Trump has said he's not going to get in the arena again with her for a second debate. But, you know, the minds change, okay? I'm a bit surprised, given his performance, that he wouldn't want to get back in there and show that he could go toe-to-toe with this young lady. But so if there is no debate, it comes down to personal appearances, it comes down to the TV ads, and it comes down to the attention of the voters to try to figure this out between now and November. All across the swing states, this continues to be tied. It's the most fascinating race that we've seen in years, and how the outcome is going to be, nobody knows. Clearly, the debate itself was not a game changer. The real impact of this debate will come in what we call the post-debate era, and that is 1 to 2 weeks after, where word of mouth begins to come into play. Obviously, social media is big in playing this debate, taking snippets out, and so it's up to the voters now, and it's up to the candidates, and who's going to win is anybody's guess.
Coming up, we'll take you to the state capitol's 9/11 memorial event. Stay right here. Wednesday was the 23rd anniversary of the September 11th terror attacks. Michigan lawmakers and first responders recognized the day in a ceremony on the state capitol lawn, one of many annual events around the state marking the day and recognizing the first responders who gave their lives to save others on September 11th, as well as the people from or connected to Michigan who lost their lives.
May the memory of our fallen first responders and men and women in uniform be a blessing. Let us remember and honor the lives of the patriots today and every day after this, and commit ourselves to building a better America. Thank you, God bless you, and may God continue to bless these United States of America.
In Lansing, flags were lowered to honor each person from Michigan who died that day. And that's our show for this week. Thank you for watching the Capitol Rundown. We'll see you next week.